Hey guys, Mike with Shad. I wanted to do a video on something that I haven't seen any of the bait makers do, and that is tuning glide baits. You know, I've spent a lot of time designing these baits, and I've had a lot of experience designing glide baits. Obviously not for sale, but behind the scenes I've done a lot of experimenting and stuff. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Gill glide and how to tune it. For those of you who remember, this bait has a tuning chamber in it, and I'm going to show you how to get into it. Basically what you do is you take a framing nail or a piece of wire or a paper clip. I'm going to cut the head off, and then I'm going to put it in the jaws of the pliers, and I'm going to stick it in the pinhole from the bottom. It must go through the bottom, and you stick it out, okay? And then you pull the pin out, and that gives you your two halves, okay? Now as you see there, you see that tuning chamber, and if you look in there, there's a little bit of lead in there. This is how I tune the bait for the rate of fall. The key to a glide bait, the good glide of a glide bait, is to get this as neutral balance, neutral buoyancy as possible, meaning suspend or slight fall than suspend. And what you do is you add or take away lead to get that bait, that desired rate of fall. We also use hooks as ballast too, to help sink the bait. I might upsize my hooks if the bait is floating a little heavy to get that little bit more weight in there without adding extra weight. But that is where we put the weight or take the weight away to make the bait fall at the correct rate of fall. If your bait falls too fast, it's gonna have a tendency to go downward and not glide as much. When you want something to glide, you want it to be neutral buoyancy so that it can go, you get the full effect of the design versus something that's very heavy. It's going to want to go downward and to the side, so you're not going to get those nice sweeps that you normally would with a glide bait. So, some other things that you'll see with some of my glide bait is, before I go into that, let me just say this. If you ever get your glide bait painted, make sure that when you have the pin in there, you tell your painter to keep the wire exposed. Okay, and the reason for that is because when he puts his epoxy over it, he glues the wire down in place so you can't be able to get to the tuning chamber. If it's glued in place, you can't get it out. So if he clears it with the pin sticking out, you can at least access the pin, still access the tuning chamber, and have a custom painted bait. So if you do get your custom painted baits, make sure you have that pin sticking out for that very reason, okay? Now another thing that I want to tell you about glide baits, especially on mine, if you're gliding your bait and it starts to fold, by fold I mean it does this number. What you do to counteract that is you need to put the pin, pull it out, and you need to twist your screws. There's two screws here, 360 degrees inward. Okay, make sure you tune both 360 degrees. Don't put one 370 and another one 360 or your bait's gonna be cockeyed, your joint hat. So move them inward 360 degrees and put the pin back in and give it a try. So what that does is that eliminates the premature folding that you see with a lot of glide baits. Sometimes you may have to do that with mine, is just pull that pin out, push those pins in 360 degrees, and then let it do its thing. It'll dance really, really nice, and then you get that second wind. So that's one of the things, the tips that I have. And also make sure that they hit at the same spot on each side. As you're moving this back and forth, you can see that leading edge hits at the same spot on the left side of the head as it does on the right side of the head. So if it doesn't, you want to bend it. Just bend it by hand so that it hits the equal side equally. And then, like I said, if it folds up, you can just pop the pin out and move those screws inward 360 degrees preferably, and then put the bait back together, and you should get a much better glide bait if it's folding up prematurely. But that is the scoop on making sure that you get a good smooth glide. And also be mindful though that sometimes when I tune the bait here in Georgia and I send it up there to Florida, if I tune it to barely sink here in Georgia, it's gonna and it's warmer temperature in Florida, it's going to sink a little bit faster. It's hard for me to make a suspended bait and send it all over the world and expect it to perform the same that it is here in Georgia because of the water temperature differences. And I'm going to make a video exactly showing why how those water temperatures affect the rate of fall of the bait. So that is why I made the tuning chamber, so that if you live in New Hampshire, you can take this bait and make it suspend. If I send it to Miami or somewhere in Florida or Texas or Mexico, you can still take this bait and make it suspend any way you want it, or weight it any way you want it, because you have that tuning chamber. And that's the unique thing about my glide baits, and that you're able to get the direct rate of fall, maximize it. That's what I like about baits that you can tune specifically for exactly how you want it, versus stuck with how the bait maker wants you to use it. So, because everybody has different things, and fish are different from state to state, from continent, Argentina, Australia. Those fish are completely different than our fish. So it gives you a little bit of customability to get these bait to swim the way you want it. But that is the tips on tuning our glide bait, the Gill glide. Appreciate it.